Welcome to TIFF. My name is Bridget Tierney, and I work here as the manager of youth and community initiatives. And it's my distinct pleasure to welcome you to today's event, the Youth Film Series, Unarmed Verses. So is anyone here familiar with TIFF? Have we been here before? Hands. Oh, great. Old times. With school or on your own? Okay, that's good. So to begin here at TIFF, we would like to acknowledge that today's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. Traditionally, this land acknowledgement was done by Indigenous peoples when they were visiting other territories that were not theirs. And in repeating the ritual today, I'm grateful to reflect on my own relationship to this land and to express immense gratitude to work and gather here as a settler. TIFF is a charitable organization, and we would like to thank our donors and members for making TIFF's year-round programming and educational and community outreach initiatives possible. So we're very excited to have you here today, and we have a lot in store for you. Do you all know what film you're watching? Mumble. Actually, we're going to watch a movie called Unarmed Verses, as I said at the beginning. But before we start the film, we have a very special guest who's going to open our event with a reading. And her name is Francine Valentine, and she's also the star of the film. Francine is a 16-year-old high school student, originally from Antigua. She has a passion for music, poetry, and art, which developed as a result of the community-based programming that will be shown in the film Unarmed Verses. The film has given her the confidence to express herself through artistic endeavors, and her passions are to continue to learn and try new things while being able to grow and thrive. She's a total badass. Welcome, Francine.
Okay, so I'm short, so bear with me. The first poem is called Today I Became Beautiful. Today I wore my skin differently. Today I wore my skin as part of my body. Today I wore my skin as part of myself. Today I let the word mean black just be a part of me. Today I disregarded any thought and comment, whether negative or positive, and I went on an adventure to find myself. Today I learned two words. I learned the word black and I learned the word skin. I learned that I have been misrepresenting those words, although I have black skin. I had torn myself away from those stereotypes, black skin stereotypes. I had forgotten for a moment what it meant to be human, what it meant to wear black skin, what it meant to be me, and what it meant to my identity. I am not self-racist. I am a bleeding human being. But I'm destroying before I can build. Those stereotypes, those were my stereotypes. Those were my self-created labels. I let them be my trademark and disoriented my mark, my black skin mark. I forgot that black skin is not a stereotype. I forgot that skin means body and not personality. I forgot that there is a person who lives within me, only 15 years of age, that has yet to learn what life and its true meaning really is. I forgot that this 15-year-old cannot define the skin that wraps around her body and keeps her inside hidden from the world. Today, I became a black young woman. Today, I became beautiful. Another poem that I wrote is called Perfect Humans. Perfect humans. Nothing more ever brought me laughter. Humans are not perfect, no happily ever after. But I hear there are perfect people everywhere. On Instagram and music videos, there are perfect people everywhere you go. Yet nothing ever more brought me more pity. Pitying the perfect with my soul, mind, and tears for their perfection they have to fear. The ones more broken than the brokers, beyond repair, no fixing for the victors. Stuck imperfect, yet cracked like a mirror. Dear perfect persons, you are such an oxymoron. For the ones with room to improve are the ones that shine on. Okay.
We get one more round of applause for Francine. Thank you so much for sharing those words before we get started. So as I mentioned, we're so excited to present the award-winning Canadian documentary Unarmed Verses, directed by Charles Officer, in which you will get to know a lot more of Francine. The film presents a candid portrait of the resilient youth living in North York's Villaways Park, focusing on the lives of the young people in the community as they face the impending gentrification of their neighborhood and their subsequent displacement. With the help of Toronto's grassroots organization Art Starts, the community's youth use music and poetry, as we just heard, to express themselves creatively and find value in their voice. The film premiered at Hot Docs in 2017, where it won the award for Best Canadian Feature Documentary. And then in January of this last year at TIFF, where the film won the People's Choice Award at the Canada's Top 10. So a few reminders before we get started. We ask that you please place your phones on silent. Also, after the screening, we'll have a panel conversation up on stage here with Francine and two other guests, Lea Marin, the producer of the film, and Carlene Robinson, who's also featured in the film. So there'll be time afterwards for a discussion, for questions with our guests. So as you're watching the film, we encourage you to think critically about what you're seeing on screen and get those questions formulating in your head so that you can join our conversation at the end. Thanks so much. Enjoy. Yes, all the applause. So thank you, everyone, and we're so excited to have, as I mentioned at the beginning, an amazing panel of guests from both behind and in front of the camera. So please join me in welcoming producer Lea Marin and two guests featured in the film, Francine Valentine and Carlene Robinson. I'm just going to stay here and read their bios up. So Lea Marin is an award-winning Toronto-based producer with more than 18 years of experience in the industry. A graduate of the Canadian Film Centre's Producers Lab, Marin joined the National Film Board of Canada as a producer in 2006. Her most recent film credits include Unarmed Verses, which won the Best Canadian Feature Documentary at Hot Docs, and her other credits include Chelsea McMullen's My Prairie Home and Astra Taylor's Exam in Life. She recently completed production on Taylor's new documentary, What is Democracy, which premiered at TIFF this past September, and even since then she has like 100 more titles, so maybe she'll tell us a bit about that. Carlene Robinson is a passionate entrepreneur who has been involved in various aspects of the arts community for the past 10 years, following an early stint in the financial industry. She has spent the last 5 years at the not-for-profit arts organization Art Starts in the role as program manager, which has allowed her to create, shape, and facilitate arts-based programming for children and youth, young adults, and seniors. The film Unarmed Verses rose out of one of the communities Robinson was fortunate to call her second home. And of course, we all remember Francine. Huge round of applause for our panel. Okay, so thank you for joining us for a conversation after you've already given us so much in this film. I want to start right from there. That's a lot of popcorn on the floor. I'm wondering if Francine and Carlene, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how you became involved in the project, and then jump right into what it felt like to have your everyday life, like to share it in this film.
Okay, Francine's asking me to go first. So I spent 5 years as a program manager for Art Starts, and what that meant was to go into marginalized communities and provide art-based activities for children right up until seniors. And so that's how I got involved with the film. I got a call one day from the director of Art Starts saying, Carlene, you know, the National Film Board of Canada approached us and they'd like to do a documentary in Villaways. And I just kind of went wide-eyed and went like, wow. So that's how I got involved, because I was working in that community 2 days a week. Although I didn't live in the community, as I always say during a Q&A, I lived in the community, meaning that I gave it my all. So I wasn't just program manager, I was also a mentor, a teacher, a facilitator, a brother, social worker. So I was in the community.
Well, it's still kind of a mystery why, like, I was in it, because essentially they approached, I think it was like like a couple youth, and they were like, oh, we're just gonna like be filming around the neighborhood. And then one day they came to my house, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And they brought like these big cameras. I'm like, what in the heck is going on? Why are you in my house, right? And then they were like, oh yeah, we're just gonna follow you around. And they got my dad to sign the papers. And then I'm like, wait, where's everybody else? They're like, no, 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 we're just gonna follow you around. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's kind of just what happened.
I'll actually speak on behalf of the director, Charles Officer, on how Francine got involved, is that he saw something in this young woman and saw something very, very special. At first, he wanted to focus on the adults in the community, and that quickly changed when he got to meet a lot of the youth and spent a lot of time with Francine. So the fact that he saw something very, very special in this individual and the other youths who were in the documentary, that solidified it for him on I mean, the youth they have to speak about this gentrification. And we actually have someone else in the audience. Kamal is here. He's one of the young rappers in the documentary, and he also lived and grew up in Villaways.
And he now works at the National Film Board. So we've come full circle here. Woo! Okay, Francine, once you figured out that they were making a movie about you, because it must have not taken that long, and then you're staring right at the camera, can you tell our audience a little bit about what that felt like? Were you shy? Did you trust Charles? Like, Charles is the director, Charles Officer. How did you start building relationships to make this feel like something you could participate in? Especially like you were 12.
I think the most beautiful part about the films is that it doesn't just start and end with the story that you see on the canvas. It really is about the community and the people that work within it. So I think that when you're safe with the person behind the camera and it's just like, you know, try and be normal, which is hard because it's like you have this like thing right in your face. You're like, yeah, that's normal, right? But like when you trust the person behind the camera and you trust the story that you're telling, and you know that you're sharing your own truth, it becomes a little bit more normal. It's not like you're playing somebody else or you're trying to hide. It's just, this is life, and that's what life was, and that's what it was depicted as.
Awesome. So, I mean, we all saw a very powerful film just now. I'm wondering if you could each speak to why this movie felt important, like why you felt like this story had to get beyond the Villaways community and into the eyes of so many more people through the audience. And Leah, please jump in on this one as well.
You know, when this film began and Charles and I started talking about it, we talked about it from the perspective of having grown up Black in this city. And so one of the first things we connected on was just a statement he made to me, which was that he wanted to understand what was breaking the hearts of Black youth. And it just hit me in my gut. And so we come from different backgrounds. I've had a wonderful time growing up in this city. It's not to say that it's all been such a negative experience, but understanding how race affects us all was something that we understood and wanted to explore. And it wasn't just about race, it was about many things. And you know, it was actually through Bridget that we found Art Starts and actually got into this community. So she's not gonna tell you that, but I'm telling you that now, so shout out to Bridget. But for me, and I think it was really about an opportunity to understand what it is like to grow up in a community that often goes overlooked and is not, underrepresented or not reflected at all in the media. And when it is reflected, it is a moment that probably focuses on a negative aspect of life in that community, as opposed to just understanding what it is to lead a life. And a fulfilling life for many people in this community, because there was, as we learn throughout the progress of the narrative, is that there is joy and happiness and community, which is so key. And I think, having both of you here, you can speak to the loss of that to some extent, having been removed from it. But for me, it was just an opportunity to show lives being lived.
The short answer for me is that it allowed the young people of the community to have a voice, because there are many times where, they come from this community, they live in this community, and a lot of them who I spoke to believed that they didn't have a voice and they couldn't say anything to anybody. So this documentary really allowed them to speak their mind, share their art as well. So yeah, so I'm glad that Charles actually focused in on the young people of that community.
Well, okay, at first I didn't really realize that this was like taking place. I thought that it was gonna be like you know, some background, you know, and like you know, just be there, right? But I think that now that I've like well, I haven't watched the whole thing because I can't stand to hear my voice. I think I sound like so weird and I look like weird, but that's just like my opinion. But I think that the whole experience made me realize that I didn't learn about race until I went to school. Because like I come from a very interracial family. You know, my grandma's Jamaican, but she's also Indian, and she's like white. And then my mom is Dominican Republican. So like when I was like with her, she would speak like Spanish to me and stuff like that. So I never really understood race, right? So when I went to school, I was like, oh, that person looks like my uncle, right? Like you know, and like seeing like the first thing I saw when I went to my first day of kindergarten was this like little girl with these beautiful Asian eyes, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome, right? And then like I was like, I don't want, like I was telling my grandma to go away. I didn't want her to be there, right? And I just was like, so like, yay, this is life, right? And then when I think I was in school for a little bit longer, around grade 1, I finally, like, I learned the word black, and it wasn't a shade or color, it was a race, and I didn't understand that because I mean in grade 1, like, who really does, right? And then for a while, it just was, I didn't understand what it meant. To me, it was just, oh, I was born like this. I mean, I was literally born like this. I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose my race. I didn't choose anything. It was just, you're born into the world and you are what you are. And so, like, living in the community, it was just like, you know, I was like, I had to be defined by what other people saw because that's the way I was treated. And I didn't have a right to define myself. And even when I would watch, like, you know, movies and stuff like that, I would never see someone as dark as me. Like, you know, like they were always light-skinned, or they were bleaching their skin, or they were accused of bleaching their skin, or they were changing their appearance because they didn't want the black nose or the black hair, you know. And even watching, I don't know if any of you guys know this, but like, have you watched Sisters, the 90s show? Halfway through, T and Tamara, Maury, they were also on Twitches. I don't know, like, if anyone watched the Disney Channel, but if anyone watched the 90s show, like, in the season 4, they started straightening their hair. So they went from wearing the curly hair to wearing straight hair, and she actually spoke about this on the daytime television, like, series, The Real, that she went in and she killed this audition, and she didn't get the part because they were distracted by her hair because it was too black, and so they had to straighten their hair in order to get roles. And so it was really weird because it's like I have to fix myself almost to be accepted. And then it was like, here I am, and it's like I don't see anyone who looks like me, who talks like me. They're changing themselves for this camera in order to, like, you know, make money. And I'm always assumed to be like this person who's just gonna like do drugs or like whatever. And I'm hella scared of drugs, so I'm not gonna do drugs. But like getting able to do this, I'm like, this is my story, and I finally understand that it's okay for me to have a story. I don't have to be that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that piece. Do we agree in the audience? Like, do you feel as young people, like, yes, we have a story? Do people ask you your story? Do they ask you to share it, like, in a wide way? No. Yeah. So that is something that's remarkable about this film. I'm wondering if, and we're going to open it up to you guys very shortly, but I'm wondering if you can speak specifically, all of you, to sort of what Francine is building on, right? With storytelling, we get to expand how we understand people, how we understand ourselves. And I think that's true for all art forms. And I think it's beautiful here to talk about it, to hear some poetry, to watch the film, a documentary. So I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to the role of art in your lives. And, you know, the film deals with a heavy subject matter in terms of, like, truly the end of a community. Like, they literally demolished a community. But it highlights the power and the resilience through art. So I'm wondering if you can all speak to how that's impacted and continues to impact your lives.
Well, I think I just learned to grow, and I think I learned the true meaning of art, and art is life. It's that simple. I mean, you are art. You wake up and you breathe and you're alive. There's nothing more beautiful than that. And I think that realizing that my life matters was a big thing for me because I didn't feel like I mattered because I grew up being like the only black kid in school. So like if someone forgot, like not the only black kid in school, but in my class, right? So if someone forgot my name, they'd like be pointing to me like, and then they'd say like, oh, that black girl. And I'd be like, oh, who are they talking to? Like, what do you mean? And again, that's how I learned that word. So I think I realized that it's okay, like, you know, that I just have to be myself and create. And I think that we all think so differently and we all create things based on like our strengths and learning what your strengths are and just growing and being able to grow and not limiting yourself. Because I think that you are your worst enemy. That's really true because I'm like a perfectionist. It's like perfectionist. If it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And I think that I like had an epiphany like throughout the film where it's like, as long as it's me, I'm not perfect. And I'm like, wait, why is everyone else perfect but not me? So I'm like, okay, so I just need to realize that I need to grow. I need to be able to grow and I need to let myself grow.
I mean, I think I'll say that for many of us, and I know speaking just from my own experience, art is how I reconcile my place in the world. And so for me, whether that's literature or cinema or music or visual art, I think it's how we learn to break down our place and what makes sense to us and figure out, you know, how we want to move forward. And for me, it's why I do what I do. So growing up, I didn't see, as Francine already beautifully articulated, myself reflected in a lot of cinema and television. And so it became the place that I've landed, and it's where I find it important to tell those stories. But I think a lot of the way that I come to terms with our existence is actually best understood for me through art.
And for me, I spent, as my bio said, I spent quite a few years in the financial industry. So I was in those big ivory towers that you see downtown in my power suits and my high heels, but it wasn't my passion. And art has always been a passion for me. And I found that art allows one to express themselves creatively through, if it's visual arts or music or dramatic arts. And, you know, I would hear young people or even older people say, I can't. But once they start expressing themselves through art and their eyes open wide, now that's a joy for me.
Same. Do we have artists in the room? Yes. I think we could put some more hands up based on what Francine is saying. Life is art. I want to get a bit technical. Do we have any filmmakers in the room? Aspiring? Yeah, all right. All right. Yeah, the artists are also filmmakers. Leah, can you tell us what a producer does? $1 million question.
Do any of you know what a producer does? Do you understand? What I always say to people is, because people don't know, especially at the Oscars, they don't know how to, you know, put it together. But do you know what award the producer gets at the Oscars?
Best film.
Best picture.
Best
exactly. Picture. Which means we do it all. We're responsible for all of that. So basically, a producer is responsible for I see it as kind of two levels. We're responsible creatively for actually developing any given film. So by that, and I consider myself a creative producer, it means you work closely with the director initially, but then the rest of the team to actually realize the vision for the film. That's the fastest way I can put it. And then you're also responsible for financing that. So you have to find the money to put together to bring all of that into a reality. In my case, I work for the National Film Board of Canada, so I'm very privileged. It's a luxury. I work for an institution that provides me with the financing. I sometimes work in situations where I work with co-producers if I'm not producing fully on my own, and then together, you know, I will work with them or support them as they seek out further funding to actually make a film. But at the end of the day, in the independent world, a producer signs all of the documentation, is responsible for every aspect of what ends up on the screen. If it succeeds, great for them, and if it fails, you own it. So ultimately, that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. And did you all learn anything about filmmaking in this process? Was that something you were interested in? Did you like ever think you would star in a movie or make a movie?
Okay, well, in terms of behind the scenes, I am not tech savvy at all. I am like the worst millennial ever. I can't do anything. That's where he's good at that. It's not my strength. So I would not consider myself as a filmmaker. That's her craft. I didn't even consider myself as a person like being able to, I like writing poems, but that's just sort of me because like I'm obsessed with words. I don't understand it. It's almost like I was talking about this earlier, how a word means one thing, then you put it in a sentence and it means something else. And I think with poetry, it was just like my way to play. I'm like, if I say it this way, what does it mean? If I take this word out, what does that mean? Like, how am I changing them? Like, I don't get how you're changing the meaning based on just adding a word, subtracting a word, adding a letter, subtracting a letter. And I think that was like my form of artistry. I could never paint. I just perfected stick figures, and I'm very proud of myself for it. So like that's like the extent of my art in terms of like, you know, writing. I don't really like sing that much. Okay, don't give me those eyes. I don't really sing that much. And so like when Crystal came and I was just like learning how, but I was like, I'm not really like a singer. I'm more like, I just stick with me and my poems. That's all I really do.
Awesome. You're pretty good at it, so keep it up. So we're going to open it up to you all. I want to first see where this film landed with you. Do we have microphones? No. We're going to, yes. Oh, we do. Okay, awesome. So when you were watching the film, what are some of the things you noticed? What did you feel? What were you thinking about watching this film? Wow. Repeat the question? Okay. Oh, yeah, of course. So when you were watching the film, what were some of the things you started thinking about or some of the things you were feeling? Was this something you'd heard about before? Was this something that you'd never heard of before? Anything that was going through your mind while you were watching the film? Yeah, in the middle. Oh. There's mics moving.
I think I might be cheating, so if I could kind of ask a question with this.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. Well, when I was watching it, I was just thinking about how little I knew about the demolition going into this. And even while watching it, so this is where my question comes in. Can you explain what happened after the film finished? Because I know nothing of the project, how it went through. And when I say the project, I simply mean the demolition.
Revitalization.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Two words that mean very different things. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And just on that as well, because there was the confusion of, well, not the confusion, there's just the fact that everyone in the community didn't know where they went. Can you speak to what happened?
Well, we were all like separated, so basically like we all live differently, so we're not really a community. I mean, we'll always love each other. I mean, we grew up together, and like the community is all I remember. I mean, from the outside, it might just look like another community, but there was love and there was growth. And like I've known him ever since I moved to Canada, right? Like he's one of the first people I met, and so it's strong. And like everyone knew each other's business, which makes it sound like we're really nosy. We're not, we swear. But like we were a family, and that's what community meant to us, being a family. And so we were always there for each other, and we helped support each other. And you know, it was always like they would always tell us, you know, don't do drugs, don't do that, don't do that. Like go to school, make sure you're doing well in school, and always supported us and always supported our dreams and our aspirations. And so like after the community, we just kind of all went our separate ways. I mean, I'm still in contact. My grandmother has a lot of the numbers of a lot of people, and we still, you know, call each other and we talk and we're like, oh, how's life and stuff like that. But yeah, we're not like all living together anymore. So that's what I'll say about it.
So 122 units were placed throughout the city. And it was all on a draw system. So depending on what number you drew was, you know, the pecking order as to where you got to live. So from a community of 122 units to families going into new communities where they had, you know, no family, no friends. It was very difficult, and the Villaways community has since been demolished. So if for those who do not know where it is, it's right at Leslie and Shepherd. If you know where the IKEA is, just off the 401. So it's right down there, and they're in the process of building condos and townhomes right now.
I'd just like to give a moment to Kamal, because I actually want Kamal just to say a comment about this, because I think you speak quite articulately about it, and just to express kind of what it's been for you and for your family.
Okay, so what had happened was when the community was broken down, everybody had gone onto a bus, went to the library by Fairview Mall, and there was a draw system, and that draw system didn't have any priority to any disability or anybody of who had special needs. It was more just pick a number, and from 1 to 122, that was your priority. And number 1 being the highest, and 122 being the lowest. And my family was number 69. So what had happened from there was you got a list of potential homes, like vacant homes, scattered places, apartment buildings under the Toronto Community Housing. And you put your top 5 priorities, and if somebody who was more priority than you wanted your house, they got it. And it was pretty hard moving from there. So when my family had moved, I had moved to Ottawa myself for a gap year program where I had gone to Germany and I had done many things. I learned a lot about life, and after a year I came back home and heard terrible stories of like people from my community who got put into harsh places, harsh environments, and things that had happened. And honestly, one thing I learned through this entire process is that life goes on, and you got to be there for the people that support you, be there for the people that care about you, you know? So life goes on. We all work hard. We all have a choice. We all have things to do to get to where we need to be. And honestly, it's a terrible thing that had happened, but Francine has become such a beautiful, articulate young lady. I look at all the people that I grew up with, and some people are in harsh places, but some people have risen to heights that I never even knew that they would get to. So honestly, I'm very proud of a lot of people, and I'm there for the people who need me. And my name is Kamal, but I'm an artist. My name is Astro the Prophet, and I'm there for everybody. Any artist, any filmmaker, any citizen who just needs their voice to be heard, I'm there for you. So.
And he just dropped. Can you tell him? Tell him.
Yeah, I released the EP. It's called Pure Pressure. And it's going to be on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, all that good stuff. So.
No big deal. No big deal. Thank you. Come on, stay. Yeah, please. We have another comment or question, whatever feels right.
Right. All right. So a poet once said, "It's different when finding home than finding yourself." During the movie, during the movie while you guys were recording or taking the film screening of it, have you been able to find home, or have you been able to find who you are?
Wow, that's a very good question.
That's the best question.
Wow. That's okay. I think, first of all, I've never believed that home is a physical place, because physical place deteriorates and they can always be rebuilt. The people that you meet in your life, once they're dead, they're gone. That's it. And so my home was my community, and it wasn't the houses in my community. It was the people in my community. And they helped me find myself. I think home can be a good place for some people. It can be a bad place, but it helps you find yourself in the sense that you learn. You're always learning every day. And if you ever come to the assumption that you know enough, you're going to be torn down eventually, because you never do. And learning helps you find yourself, and it helps you realize that it's okay to change, it's okay to be better, and it's okay to love yourself and to do what's right for you. It might seem selfish sometimes, but when it comes to knowing who you are and being safe and being happy and being healthy, that comes first, and it always comes first. And home helps you realize that.
But home is also somewhere where you feel safe. It's somewhere where the second you walk in, you feel like there is no worries. Like, you can relax, you can let down your guard. And since I left Villaways, I have not found home. I can't find that anywhere I've been. And I've been in a lot of places. I've traveled alone, and I've traveled with my family, and I could tell you for certain, I did find myself, though. I did find out who I was and where I am in the world and where I need to be. And I hope that one day I can build that home again.
Thank you. I see a flash.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Francine, I just wanted to say where this movie struck me, one of the things that I think is so amazing about all of you, and Francine in particular, is how at such a young age you were so inquisitive and asking the big questions and studying and learning and never stopping. Your wisdom is exceptional, and you're beautiful, and you are perfect. And I'm really amazed with this piece. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes, we can clap. Other people in the audience, things you connected to, things you're afraid of. Has anyone ever stood at a microphone and been unable to speak? Yes.
Surprisingly, I'm actually one of those people that are very afraid to speak on a microphone.
Then can we get a round of applause for her?
I wanted to let you know that I really appreciated the film, and I found a lot of different symbols that meant a lot to me, like with your family and with your community. And when your community was getting demolished, I found that there were a lot of different challenges that you and the other cast members had to face. And I was wondering, what was your favorite part of creating this film, and also what did you find most difficult?
What I found most difficult, I think, when creating something, every creation comes from a humane place. And I think it was getting to the place that was difficult because I had to face myself. And I really didn't want to. And I think at that age, I had a lot of things going on in terms of I moved to Canada when I was 4, and I did grow up in a somewhat dysfunctional family that was dysfunctional, but it made sense at the same time. And then I grew up in a dysfunctional community to other people, but it made sense to me. And I didn't feel like I fit into this world or this category or even into my race. And it was a lot of things, and I think that the difficult part of it was facing myself and realizing that I had to overcome myself. And I think that, when people used to compliment me or say things to me, I would always shake my head or say no, because I think differently, and I had very low, self-esteem or also perspective of self. And I think that it's getting better. I don't think that I'm at that stage where it's oh yeah, I'm good, I know I'm fly, that kind of stuff, that. I'm not like that. I'm not that kind of person. But I think that was the challenge. My favorite part of making this was being with people that I loved. And I think that when you love people and then you put that love in creation and then you get over that difficulty, you create something really beautiful. And I think that was what my favorite part of it was.
I believe the best part of this entire experience, filming it, was when we were in the studio, and one day I went in and I was freestyling and stuff, and Francine was looking at me through the window, and she was just smiling at me ear to ear. And right after me, she was going in. You saw when she poked me and stuff. That scene went over 2 days, right? And when she went in, she was too shy to perform her piece. And then the next day that we were in the studio, I was just talking to her, and actually LJ was going over the piece with her, and you heard me yell in the back, "Bust it out," because she was singing. It sounded so good, and I heard her from the other room. And then she came in, and Crystal was talking to her, and I looked at her. I was like, "Francine, you can do this." And she went in, and she was shy, and it took 15 minutes. But when she finally sang that song, it was just so beautiful. And that was my favorite part of that entire process, when she broke out of her shell and she started singing. That was the best part of making this film, hands down. But the hardest part of the experience was actually watching the film afterwards, because I had left home for a year, and then I came back, and then the film came out, and I was just looking at my home and all the people that I cared about, and just seeing all those B-roll clips of the gutters with the rain falling down, and the stairs, and that bridge in the creek, and and all those views that you'd see every single day, and those faces you'd see, and and the smiles, and when you're walking down, everyone says hi, and I miss that so much. And the hardest part of this film is just watching it and remembering how good those days were.
For me, the best part of this film is to be able to watch the then and the now, the growth of these young people. And the worst part, like Kamal, is just the demolition. It took me a long time to actually drive by that community, because there were so many memories that I had of the communities that was just turned into rubble. So I was very anxious, and it took me a while to build up enough courage. I'm going to use that word. It took me a while to build up enough courage to actually drive by. And when I did, I drove by, stopped my car, and I just looked at the rubble, and all the memories. Yeah. All the memories are just rubble. So that's the worst part.
Because they didn't tear down walls, they tore down people. It wasn't just a community where like you didn't know your neighbor. We knew everybody. It was a family. So it was hard. I think that was a hard thing for me too.
Bittersweet to have a time capsule on screen. I think we have go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd just like to say congratulations on the production of this film, and thank you for sharing your story with us. It was amazing to watch and learn. And congratulations on your growth for all of you as well. I think it was amazing for me to see from an external perspective you from that young age, and even to see you now on this stage and your comfortability. I know you said that you weren't completely comfortable, but it's great to see your growth over that time. So congratulations on that. I just wanted to ask, you are very talented. I just want to ask, what are your plans for after high school? Are you in grade 11?
I am in grade 11.
Yeah.
I actually turned 16 in December 21st, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, so. So,
Watch out.
how many people, can you raise your hand, how many people are older than me in this like audience? Yeah. Baby. I remember going into middle school and my principal had this name for me. I was called the baby of the school because not only was I in the youngest grade, but I was the youngest person in the school. So I was the baby of the school, and then she cried. She's like, "The baby is graduating." Okay. Okay. So I think after high school, I don't know.
Who knows though? Who knows?
I mean, I think that it's. Wow, you know, you
one,
got guts,
one person
man.
knows.
One
person knows.
I don't. Who knows what they want to be? I think that what's important is to explore your options, because I really appreciate like people giving time and not only money and investing into me, but like because I have this fear of like going in not knowing what I want to do, and I do something and then being like halfway through like, you know, oh, I don't want to do this, but I spent so much money, right? And I think that's like a bad thing to like do, because you should be doing what you love, and that I think Carlene's proof of that. You should be doing what you love. But I think exploring my options. So I'm taking co-op next semester, and I'm going in for writing. I have a course because I'm really into like like psychology. So I'm taking bio. Yeah, and I'm also taking working with young children and infants, and I'm learning a lot about like youth psychology and how that had to do like with mental illness, and also like the connection between like people being play deprived and mass murders, and learning all about that. And I really think that's interesting. And I think that basically is again allowing myself to grow and realizing what I like, what I don't like, and trying a little bit of everything, because then I can be like, oh, I don't like that, and then oh, I like this, and then growing off of that. But no, I have no idea what I want to do. Hopefully I figure it out soon, because I'm graduating next year. And yeah.
We're cheering for you. Are you both still passionate about like using your voice for social change and like advocating in your new communities, or how do you stay involved in that kind of process at this point?
Well, currently I run a studio at Warren and Lawrence along with two others, and so making music is one of my passions that I'll be doing for the rest of my life. And in my new community, I've met a few people who I've brought over to the studio, and like it's about like just being who you are no matter where you are, right? Like no matter where I am, by the time I'm 30, I hope to be in a position in my life where I can really, really make change. Like a few months ago, we had the Toronto Arts Day, and I had meetings with 28 counselors and along with the team, and we moved to raise the Toronto arts budget by $2 million for the 2019 plan. So I'm hoping that in the future, when I'm old enough that I can be a voice for the people, that I can really make that change for the people like myself who just want to grow and be successful, you know? So, yeah.
When it comes to me, so something that really opened my eyes. Okay, I was just talking about sister. So something that a lot of you might not know is that Tamara, she's married to her now husband Adam Housley, and their niece Elena, who's 18 years old, was just killed by a war veteran. It was college night at the bar. She sat down and she was shot and she was killed. And so something that Tamara said that really struck me was that she didn't want to make her niece's death a political matter, because when you say politics, everyone's mind just kind of shuts off. But she wanted to make it a sense of human decency and that it starts with us. So I think really for me, the way that I can change people is by changing myself. And I'm not going to front and be like I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. And there's a lot of things that I have to figure out about myself. And I think that once I figure those things out, that's when I'll be able to change. And change really does start with you. So I think I'm starting with me, and that's where I'm starting from.
I think we all know why there was a movie made about you. We have time for probably one, maybe two more questions. Is there anything burning? They've already shared a lot with us, so let's just keep that in mind. Okay, I have a microphone. If it's, you can just shout.
How about you stand up?
Do you want to stand up? Yeah. Okay.
No? Anybody else?
No, we can hear you. Let's hear your question.
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear.
So I'll just repeat it so everyone can hear. Thank you for your question. So there's a quote in the movie, "You can't have a future without the past." So the question was just where that quote came from.
Okay, so I do a lot of reflecting, which is weird because I was 12 years old when I said that. So I'm like, what do you have to reflect on? But I just, and I think that we all come from somewhere. And I think that some of us have good upbringings and that causes us to do good things. Some of us not so much, but ultimately the choice is still yours. And I think that you can't let your past define your future, but you can help it to make a better future for yourself. And I think that you can't have a future without the past, because we need to start from point A before we can, get to point B. And I think that that's the point. It's like you have a past. Now, is it going to help you do good things or bad things?
Great question. Okay, I think this will be our last question. No pressure.
Oh, hello. Hi. Sorry. In the past few months, I've become very politically active. And I've been just on campaigns and stuff like that, helping out and stuff like that. And I don't know what my future will be, and that field. But by watching your movie today, it just really showed me how politicians need to be for the community and just connecting with the community instead of just being, hidden away in their office and signing papers. They need to be out in their community, listening to the people, and just, I think this movie is really kind of helping me to understand that, listening to your community that you live in is really important,
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
First of all, I hope that you, whatever you want to be, that you figure that out and that you can become that. And I think being a politician, I think that there's this negative stigma around politicians, and I don't think there's anything bad with them. But I think the fact is that if you're not communicating with your community, if you're not out and being like active, how are you seeing the problems? You're hearing it. I think hearing things, we can hear things all our life. I mean, I hear a lot of things from my parents. It goes through one ear and comes out the next. I mean, I'm a teenager. I'm not really listening, right? But I think that when you see the outcome of something, and you see, and you're there, and you're really like experiencing it, it hits home. And I mean, it's one thing to hear about people, it's another thing to see people. And if you're not seeing people, you're not doing your job. So I think that it's a great thing that you realize that, because if you do become a politician, which I hope you do, we need more people like you, then changes start to happen.
And I don't believe it's just only like seeing them and just making an appearance. It's about hearing their voices. Like as you saw in the film, Shelly Carroll had come for like one of those annual barbecues that they had in our community, and you saw how it depicted her. And we had a screening actually at the Toronto City Hall, and along with, I believe it was around 8 or 9 counselors, and Shelly was within that crowd. And when she saw the film, she immediately, like at the end of the film when she spoke, she was like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know that that's how you guys saw what was going on. I didn't like the way that she said that she viewed this was like almost like a home renovation where you'd leave and everything gets spruced up and you come back, and that's what it was. But when you have a home renovation, you get to go in a hotel, you get to have all these luxuries of life, and then after when you come back, your house is just better. But the reality is what was going on was the destruction of homes and like the destruction of people, and like the roots that we had in that community was just torn out. And now today, she, like when I said when I had that meeting with her as well as the other counselors, she was the one who put that foot forward, who spoke to many other counselors to get those votes to make sure that this gets on the planning, right? So she really saw what we were seeing. And for your future, I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you within the cabinet.
Yes. I want to thank this audience so much for your engagement and your thoughtful questions and your enthusiastic clapping. And to our panel and the stars of this film, the protagonists of this story, thank you for your courage and for sharing so much with us. You're all brilliant. And I hope everyone is feeling really inspired by what we've seen, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The world is not a perfect place, but it is ours to change and to work on ourselves and to make it better bit by bit. So thank you for bringing that with all of yourselves, honestly, every time. And thank you all for coming. Come back.